We just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
All right, guys, thanks for joining ETN. This is Rob. I'm your host. All right, so this video, we're going to go over some of these images that we all pretty much caught from the last two TV spots. And, you know, just take a good look at all three of them together and try to come up with an idea of what we see. So let's start off with the MUTO picture. Now, again, this is very, very hard to dissect. Now, there's some people who still think this is the airport scene. That's still a possibility because one of the things they did mention about the airport scene is that the MUTO knock out all the lights and the power. So that could explain the darkness. There's some people who think this is the winged MUTO, so it's a very, very confusing picture because on one hand, you could argue that this is the airport scene with the MUTO, but on the other hand, if those in the back there are indeed the wings, then this is not the airport scene because the airport scene has the 8-leg MUTO. Now, granted, if you go by the toys, the 8-leg MUTO and the wing MUTO will look very much alike in terms of their face and even their body structure, so it's hard to tell. I know that some people have argued that the MUTO at the airport is kind of like a whitish color. And I have seen that in the trailer as well, where you see it biting down on the train. And if you slow motion it, you know, you could see that it's a little white. And that's also what was reported in Comic-Con. But my argument is that perhaps that could have changed a little bit between Comic-Con and now because the movie was not done. And perhaps to kind of throw people off, they're keeping that concept footage in the trailer of the white MUTO biting down, because as you look at the toys, neither one of them, wing MUTO or the alien MUTO, neither one of them are white. So kind of interesting there. So you know, there's one person there running, there's all these lines going across, and I'm curious as to whether or not this means either A, this is one of their creations and they're trying to keep it under control, or B, they're just trying to control this thing. Now if you look at the person running there relative to the MUTO is not that big, which tells me that this could be the 8-leg MUTO, because remember, they did say that the 8-leg MUTO, while very large, paled in comparison to Godzilla in terms of scale. So that's another argument you can make when you consider whether or not this is the airport scene. But either way, I mean, we'll obviously find out in about, you know, another 5-6 weeks. But a very, very nice shot in that mouth, boy. And like Gareth said, they drew inspiration from a number of movies, Starship Troopers being one of them, and that mouth says Starship Troopers all over it. So that's a good shot. So now let's look at the Godzilla shot from the first TV spot. And here it is here. Now, I mean, this right here, especially after watching the Millennium Godzilla tonight, a lot of inspirations, in my opinion, come from that. I mean, look at that neck. Look at the spikes on the side, the line in the middle. You know, the definition in the center of his neck going down. Very, very, very similar to the Godzilla Millennium design. Now, I know that some people were saying that the reason the spikes look so large is because he's hunched over. And yeah, that's possible. The only reason, and I didn't notice that, but the reason I'm thinking they look bigger than I recall is because if you remember the teaser trailer when they're halo jumping into the city, Godzilla's hunched over in that picture too, and his spikes just do not look that big. I mean, they're good, but they're not that big. And the other thing I find interesting is that in the full trailer, the Godzilla that comes out of the water has some really, really big spikes. So I understand there's a chance of a transformation here with him. And when I say transformation, I'm talking about my last video where I talked about pre-charred Godzilla and post-charred Godzilla. In other words, how Godzilla looked before he got nuked and how he looked after he got nuked. This picture looks to me like it's supposed to be after he gets nuked, and maybe that's the airport scene, but we don't know what happens in the beginning of the movie. We don't know what kind of shots they're going to show of him, and we don't know what they're going to show him doing. We do know that we'll probably briefly see him in the beginning of the movie before he gets nuked, or right as he gets nuked. So we'll have to wait and see. But I like the spikes. I like the body and the texture on the body, the detail. And his teeth, for me, are a little bit small. I find his teeth to be rather small for such a giant monster. But it works. You know, it works. It's definitely something I'm gonna have to get used to. But you know, overall, I think they've done a good job with the design. They created something original, but they kept the likeness of the Toho monster, which has gone through its own transformations in and of itself. So, but overall, I think they did a fine job. I like the fact that he's very brawny and burly looking, and he looks physically imposing, because I don't want this Godzilla to rely too much on his atomic breath. I want him to get down and scrap. And a lot of times in his older movies, he really, really heavily leaned on his atomic breath. I want his atomic breath to be something valuable in this movie. I don't want it to be abused. I don't want it to be used every 5 seconds. I want it to be used very sparingly, and I want to see him brawl and get down. So that's a very good, very, very good shot of Godzilla, obviously. And then finally, we're going to look at today's money shot, and that one is going to be Godzilla's hand. And here we are right here. There's Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ford Brody's head. And this is clearly his hand. This is not his foot. You know, he could either be crouching down, he could be getting up, who knows. But what I like here, and this is probably as clear as we're going to get until somebody really does an HD version of the picture, but I like the hand. To me, spells Godzilla in terms of that scaly look that he gets, or that he has, I should say. I really, really like that. I noticed that the hands also are at least in the toys, they seem to look webbed. I'm not seeing that here too much. Maybe that's what that dark spot is in the center between his fingers there. But this just gives you an idea of the scale. I mean, look at Brody. He's not even standing next to him. And look at the size of his hand compared to his upper body. And that's why, going back to the MUTO picture, I think that's something that you got to pay attention to as to whether or not that MUTO is either the 8-legged one or the winged one. Because I heard the winged one is supposed to be quite a bit bigger than the 8-legged one. I heard the 8-legged one is dwarfed by Godzilla. So, and that man, when you kind of look at him, scale of comparison to the MUTO in that picture, the MUTO obviously looks very big, but not as big as he does in the trailer when he puts his claw down, and those army men look like ants next to him. So, but no, it's a great shot. Great shot. I mean, this is good stuff, you know, and hopefully, if we do get a little more, it's not too much more. I think they're good. I really think they're good at this point. I don't think they need to do anything more. But those are some great pictures. Share with me your thoughts. What do you think about these pictures? What do you think they're saying? What, you know, do you have any theories as to where they could be taking place and what events could be occurring around these pictures? And we'll go from there. This is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching ETN. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Nation Facebook page. You're watching ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
All right, guys, thanks for joining ETN. This is Rob. I'm your host. All right, so this video, we're going to go over some of these images that we all pretty much caught from the last two TV spots. And, you know, just take a good look at all three of them together and try to come up with an idea of what we see. So let's start off with the MUTO picture. Now, again, this is very, very hard to dissect. Now, there's some people who still think this is the airport scene. That's still a possibility, because one of the things they did mention about the airport scene is that the MUTO knock out all the lights and the power. So that could explain the darkness. There's some people who think this is the winged MUTO, so it's a very, very confusing picture, because on one hand, you could argue that this is the airport scene with the MUTO, but on the